So one night, me and my friend were hanging out and talking in a call over Discord as we played music. When Discord had music bots, but we'd go back and forth adding whatever song popped into our heads until my friend remembered a song and put it on. It was this droning, melancholic song that I never heard the likes of before, though oddly enough it gave me this nostalgic feeling as other distorted songs would cut in and out, wind blowing through a hollow landscape and voices of children playing as the track went on. It was haunting and really stuck with me. By the end of it I had to know what it was from, my guess being some old anime or a weird indie game, but my friend told me it was from the PlayStation 2 game Klonoa 2. Which almost sounded like a joke once I looked at the box art. Like, this is the last game I would guess had that kind of song in it, but my curiosity was piqued for sure, and I had to know the context behind the song and where it took place in game. But I didn't want to just jump into the second game, I wanted to build up to it. So, I started my playthrough of the first game, Klonoa, Door to Phantomile. But what is it anyway? Well, it's a 2.5D platformer and was published by Namco and directed by Hideo Yoshizawa, the same dude who made the Ninja Gaiden series, and he was tasked with making Namco's next big IP for home consoles, something to the likes of Pac-Man in the arcades. Originally it was going to be a much more serious game about robots with runes on it and fighting werewolves of all things, with a more emotional story. But that was scrapped, and instead aimed to make a more lighthearted game, while still keeping that emotional story aspect intact, so everyone can enjoy it, from kids to adults. And when it released, it was more than enjoyed, it was loved. This game was a big hit in Japan, selling 500,000 copies. It was huge, but obviously the same success didn't really pan out overseas. But why is that? Critics seem to love the game while the masses didn't really get it. So what's the deal? No marketing. And possibly the cutesy art style, which would have been a hard sell for a lot of people. But it didn't help with the Namco doing the bare minimum advertising this game. The most we got was this. But hey, at least the ones who did play it loved it, touting it as a cult classic and a hidden gem of the PlayStation library, including me, as it quickly became one of my favorite games and honestly more than the second game that I was playing this game to get to in the first place. But yeah, I've been wanting to talk about this game for a while now. Never really looked into the PlayStation catalog that much, only really playing the classics that caught my eye like the Crash series, LSD Dream Emulator, and Silent Hill, so Klonoa would have easily slid under the radar for me if my friend never told me about it. But now I want to pass this game along and show others why this game is one of my favorites, and a hidden gem of the console. But with that out of the way, let's get started. So this game starts with someone recalling a long-forgotten dream, but a vivid one as moonlight shines in a ring, kicking off the story. After that, we get this charming CGI motion-captured cutscene, as it shows us Klonoa wandering through the forest till something crashes down from the sky. He goes to investigate what it was, then finds the ring that was in the intro. Along with it, this little guy named Hupo, who's a ring spirit that powers Klonoa's ring. After that, they become quick friends as they play together in the grass fields. But the moment is cut short as something crashes into Bell Hill, the bell ringing out from the impact as dark clouds start to storm the area. They gather low to the ground and close in around the two, covering them in darkness. But it was all just a bad dream, and Klonoa wakes up in his bed, and thankfully something like that would never actually happen since that would be ridiculous. Fuck. And just like in the nightmare, something crashed into Bell Hill, as if it was foreshadowing events to happen, but it's up to us to go check it out. Now that we're in the game, we get a nice look at the aesthetics. This game's visuals are top-notch. The old CGI motion capture look of the cutscenes with pixels I can count on one hand, along with the CGI sprites in this colorful low-poly world is really charming and captures that nostalgic dreamlike vibe it was going for, intentionally or unintentionally. Even the art design of the levels follows suit, with everything else being very whimsical and dreamlike. some even having cute little details to make the world feel more alive, like enemies looking at you from the foreground, to being silly little guys just having fun, or things in the environment adding nice touches to the look of the world, along with some being key features to progress. Even the HUD looks great. I love the crystal health bar that the bosses have, and the heart gems Klonoa does as well. And to tie it all together, the music really hits it home. Here are a few of my favorite tracks. But honestly, this whole game still holds up very well today, unlike a lot of other games at the time, and I love it. A part of me wishes that we got a remake that was 2D illustrated sprites in a 3D world, but it's better that they didn't do that for reasons I'll mention later. But enough with the looks and the sounds. How about the feeling of the game now that we're actually in the first level? Well, you got your basic jump, a flutter jump for more airtime or to just reach those ledges that you're about to miss, and the wind bullet. It's pretty short, and despite the name, it's not much of an actual bullet. But if we hit an enemy with it, they undergo personal and literal growth as they inflate. We're then able to carry them around. And with the enemies like this, we get access to even more moves, like using them as a double jump, throwing them at other enemies, obstacles blocking our way, or getting collectibles that are in our plane, in the background, or the foreground. And even interacting with the world in different ways. Not only does it have so much potential for gameplay and puzzle solving, but it's almost treating the enemies as power-ups. Plus, it's just really fun to play with. The devs also knew this as well, and later on even showing this off with enemies that have different effects when held. One flying you up into the air to reach places you couldn't normally get to with the double jump, and others exploding after a short period of time, used for activating switches or damaging things in its blast range. But along with the enemies are the bosses, and throughout the game are somewhat easy, but utilize the moveset nicely enough. Nothing too crazy as they boil down to hitting the weak point till they're dead, with only a slight variation in patterns when enough damage is dealt, but still fun nonetheless. But there are a few problems with this moveset. I kinda mentioned this earlier, but because Klonoa is a 2D sprite in a 3D world, hitting things in the background is a bit finicky. Since he's not in 3D, his sprite always has to be looking at you, the camera. So the slightest change in the camera can mess up your shot, making you have to line it up again. This isn't a problem that comes up a lot in the game since they designed the levels to accommodate for this, but it does come up sometimes. Like, I line up my shot, but because the camera is moving a little bit, it messes up my aim and I miss. Then having to get another enemy or waiting for them to respawn. But along with this is another annoying thing that can happen. If you grab an enemy and hit jump too quickly, you won't be able to double jump, instead eating the input and doing nothing. This problem doesn't come up that much since you're not really in a rush to pull off a double jump that quickly, but if you're going for 100%, then you definitely will with the post-game content for sure, since it's all about double jumping. Most of my deaths solely came from this bug and not from the level itself. And speaking of deaths in this game, it really doesn't want you to game over. Like, badly. Whenever you die enough times or are getting close to 0 lives, the game will feel bad for you and just give you 3 free lives. Like, I get it, you want this game to be accessible for everyone, including kids, but when the game just hands these out like old people in taffy, it kinda takes the tenseness out of the challenge. And sure, you'll just be booted back to the title screen only needing to go back into the level that you were just at, but still, it takes away from the little difficulty there already was. But besides those few flaws, the game as a whole is very polished, from the looks, controls, music, design, and to the story. Speaking of, we'll get into that right after the break. I really like the story. You'd think it'll go in a tropey kind of way, what with the intro and the setting, but actually it does something better with it that genuinely caught me off guard. But before we get into all that, we gotta go back to the start near Bell Hill, where Klonoa and Hupo meet Blue, this furry guy who yells a lot and has a huge and very questionable love for the Diva Lafis. The dude even building a huge tower to reach her in the Moon Kingdom and carving her head into the side of a cliff. Imagine simping for someone that hard. But as he goes on, Lafis is the one to sing the Song of Rebirth to purify the land of nightmares every so often. A pretty important job and not clear if it's even being done from the looks of things. But later on, that's when we get our answer, as we meet Gladius and Joka, who have kidnapped Lafis, and with her power, Gladius can now shroud the world in eternal nightmares. So he takes off with her and Joka sends out a huge chameleon, giving us our first boss, which is pretty easy. After that, a pendant drops out of the bell as Joka runs off, and it seems like it belongs to Lafis. Klonoa takes it to his grandpa and explains what happened. He then tells us that this pendant belongs to the Moon Kingdom, a place that's unknown to even exist or not. But to know for sure, we have to talk to Granny, who's the leader of the tree village. So the pendant is left with Grandpa as we head over. But as we get there, we're unable to enter because something's happened to the water, causing the forest to slowly die. So we take it upon ourselves to find out what's going on. So we head over to Jugpot Kingdom. I love the set pieces of the levels we visit, this one having reverse waterfall and music reflecting it very nicely. And speaking of details, you may have noticed a collectible I've been collecting, the villagers. These guys are hidden around the levels, hidden in eggs, bubbles, and even in the environment itself. They're just for fully completing the game, but the more little guys you save, the more complete the world map music will be, until you save all of them, making a full song, which is really cute. Anyway, we make our way through Jugpot and end up saving a dolphin whose mom's been brainwashed, leading us to the next boss, the king of Jugpot and the mother dolphin Palma. This fight's pretty fun. You can do it the normal way by waiting for her to pop up in the middle of the arena, then throwing the king at her. Or if you want to do it quicker, you can actually hit her while she's going in for an attack. Also, side note, I just love how the king sounds. Speaking of how the king talks, the language that the characters speak is actually an artificial language made for the game, which is so cool and makes the characters feel more alive instead of them just saying gibberish, which they easily could have done, but I'm glad they went that extra mile. But now that we took care of the boss and Joker who was behind all this, stupid bit, we then get a ride from Carol the baby dolphin and head back to the tree village. And since the water has returned, everything's sprung back to life and new plants even sprouting up. As we make our way through and deal with Joka again, we get flung into the tree mansion. We go through it solving some light puzzles and seeing these new bomb enemies that I was talking about earlier. Once we're done with that, we make our way to the top and see Joka again, who's held Granny hostage for information about the Moon Kingdom. He runs off seeing us, but not before giving us our next boss fight. Pretty easy like the others, just jump and throw the enemies down at the weak point. After that, Granny tells us that the pendant actually is a key to the Moon Kingdom, and the way to get there is by using the pendant in the Sun Temple, which floats in the sky. We then tell Granny that Grandpa has the moon pendant. We're told to go back and get it before someone else does. But then Joka comes out of hiding, and he knows everything after listening in on Granny. We then have to run back home, taking a shortcut to try to beat Joker there with the music really adding to the rush. We finally make it back home and we see Grandpa safe and sound, seeming like we beat Joker there until this happens. My jaw actually hit the floor when I first saw this. Throughout the whole game, it's been nothing but a cute, easygoing game. It lulls you into this thought process before shattering it, making this all the more shocking. And not to mention, Joker has been set up as this joke henchman, so you wouldn't expect him to do something like this. It's honestly great and nicely ups the story as the game lets you stand there, looking out at Klonoa's destroyed home, giving the player full control on when they want to continue as the scene sinks in. And these disguised loading screen transitions adding even more to the pacing, making you feel like you're with Klonoa every step of the way. We chase Joker down and of course he runs off and gives us another boss fight. This one's pretty fun and interesting. You're on the swing going back and forth and you need to dodge the projectiles and hit the colored spots on its wings till all of them are hit. After we beat him, Klonoa heads to the rubble of the house, seeing Grandpa slowly dying on the ground, saying his last words to Klonoa and wanting him to stop Gladius before it's too late, telling him that it's his destiny before he finally passes away, and the voice acting really selling the moment. But we can't stay here as we need to get to the Sun Temple. That's when Palma, the mother dolphin we saved earlier, comes in to help us, as she's now able to fly because magic and dreams and stuff. And she gives us a lift to the Sun Temple. We make it and are met with these little guys. They're priestesses that guard the place, but they're really bad at doing so, since someone took all the gems to open the door to the altar. And so we end up having to do it. We do some more platforming, getting all the gems and opening up the way forward. We then get to the next level. And since Gladius has the moon pendant, he's now causing solar eclipses, this giving us a new obstacle to work around. This one being that the sun will be blocked out, making the area darker and making the enemies invincible, along with a new enemy that can only come out when it's dark, chasing you throughout the map like a little nemesis. Also, a headcanon that I have is that all the enemies that you see throughout the game only look cute because the land is still dreamlike and pure, this also affecting the enemies and making them look the way they do. But now that nightmares are slowly seeping into the world, it changes them to be slightly spookier, before becoming much more scary when the nightmares are about to fully take over. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We make it through the level, and as we do so we finally catch up with Joka, who's about to summon the Moon Kingdom. But before we can, we take him on in a fight, his boss battle needing more aiming and timing. You have to step on the tiles enough times to get them to stay on a certain color, before weakening Joker so he can hit his body while trying to avoid his fists that deflect our attacks. After that we finally beat Joka, but not before giving his last bit of strength to summon the Moon Kingdom, hoping for Gladius to succeed in his plans. We then watch as the pendant is used, shooting beams of light into the kingdoms before summoning the Moon Kingdom, as it emerges from the earth and floats into the sky, exposing it for Gladius to soon take over. We then ride Dolphin Mommy. I can't. We then ride Palma to the Moon Kingdom, and we arrive to the final area, and honestly my favorite one just for how beautiful it all looks. From the crystals used to build everything, the sand and sparkles used to slide to new places, and to just add that nice little touch. And not to mention that fucking music, god damn! I have no fucking clue how hard it was to save this song till the end. But anyway, while listening to this fucking banger, we get through the level by using everything we learned throughout the game, and breaking these gem blocks to make progress. After that, we see this dark egg that you can hear a beating heart in before taking an elevator up. We then meet up with a guard of the Moon Kingdom who calls Hupo Prince, along with the Queen telling us that Gladius has taken over and trapped Laphise in the egg we just passed, harboring the nightmares till it's ready to hatch. But Klonoa is more confused about the guard calling Hupo the prince, and calling the queen his mother, with Klonoa asking who he really is. It's then revealed that Hupo is actually the prince of the Moon Kingdom, and lied to Klonoa, just saying that he was the ring spirit to go outside. But he can't tell him more than that, but is willing to explain everything once they stop Gladius. Of course Klonoa agrees since they've been friends forever, and they already came so far together, so might as well go all the way. After making some amends, we press on to the next level. This one having a bit tougher of puzzles, needing you to activate every switch in the room as fast as possible so you can open the way forward, needing you to plan out the best route to solve it, which is really fun. And just wish there was more challenging puzzles like this in the earlier parts of the game, but at least the levels have been amping up bit by bit throughout the later parts of the game. But after that, we get to the top of the kingdom and find Gladius talking about a strange dream, someone who can travel between all dream realms and how they must be destroyed to fully take over the land before we arrive. We're then taken right into the boss fight, where we're trapped in the stone circle and needing to grab enemies that appear behind these projectiles. And remember when I said this game was pretty easy? Well, this is where the game really spikes in difficulty. It's like whiplash every time I get to the final fight. You really don't expect it, so I just get fucked up for a bit before finally focusing up. But Gladius is finally dealt with, and we're greeted to Palma, who brought along everyone to help, before saying that we already dealt with the problem. We're then congratulated on stopping him, and we all head home after a job well done, is what I would say if that was the actual end. But instead, Gladius unleashes the perfect nightmare, and the egg hatches to release Nadatum, the true final boss. Everyone then offers to help defeat the boss as they ride off to the arena before Hupo stops us, telling us that the strange dream that Gladius was talking about is actually Klonoa, and that Nadatum is after him. Of course, he can't explain now as the castle starts to crumble, so we fly off to the boss, and this one is even tougher than the last. In this fight, we need to give all the cannons ammunition so they can fire at the boss. The ammunition being enemies that we can throw down into the cannons. It's all about timing and patience in this fight, and just when we think we've beaten him, we're sucked into Nadatum and taken to this icy platform that moves around, trying to throw off our aim at his weak points. After hitting him enough times, we're then spat out and brought back to the arena, where we need to do the same as before, while trying not to fall off and get hit by this rainbow attack. And again, this one's even more challenging. This is the one where I lost the most amount of lives, but after a few attempts we managed to weaken the final boss. But to finish him off, Hupo wants us to shoot him at Nadatum, promising that he'll be okay and that we'll always be together. Reluctantly, Klonoa agrees and fires Hupo into the boss. Finally ending the nightmare and freeing Lafis. Everyone celebrates their victory, but Klonoa is now left alone, with Hupo gone. I'm just kidding. He's alright. With the two back together, everyone heads back home and waits for the Song of Rebirth to be sung by Lafis, so that everything can return back to normal. The two talk about what they're gonna do now that everything's at peace, but Hupo still needs to tell Klonoa something. And that's that Klonoa doesn't belong here. He doesn't truly exist in this world. Instead, he was brought from his world to come save theirs. He was the traveler that can go through dreams, and all those memories that Klonoa remembers so vividly are all just fakes, used to get him on their side and to help them. Not even his grandpa was actually his real grandpa, just a villager tasked with playing the role of Klonoa's grandpa to sell it to him that he was born and raised here. Hupo wishes he can take it all back, but he can't. Then, the world starts to rebirth. I was on the verge of tears when seeing this. And honestly, I still tear up just watching this. It's heart-shattering watching it all unfold. Neither one of them getting a final goodbye as the credits roll, showing us all the moments we went through before finally closing the book, with your name on it. And that was Klonoa Door to Phantomile. In case you couldn't tell, this game's amazing. I love everything about it, the pros, the cons, the whole thing. And it really cemented my love for bittersweet endings like this one, and for my love of this game and the series as a whole. And of course, after this game I went straight into the second one, finally seeing where that song took place. And after I beat that, I went on to the spin-offs, then finally ending on the remakes, till there is nothing left. I still hold out hope that a new Klonoa game will come out someday, even if it doesn't seem possible. But at least it's nice to know that others share the same sentiment as me about the series. And I hope I got all of you interested in the series as well. Maybe getting some of you to try out the rest of the games as well. But that's all I have to say for this amazing game. But soon I'm going to talk about the second game, and even the remakes later on down the line. And trust me when I say I have a lot to talk about with the remakes. So, until next time, I hope you enjoyed and stick around to see what I have coming next. Later, everyone.